January 15th, 2018. I got my coffee here. Hi, good morning, everybody. So, long week. I normally make like a little list so I can kind of not so much run down it because I'm not trying to speed read through a podcast at 7:30 a.m. So, but I do like to kind of like have a topic to talk about. And sometimes, especially when you're telling stories or trying to remember how things went in the past, you gotta like kind of work it out for a day or two. But I don't have any outline for today. Mostly because this week was, so I have 2 contracts that I'm working on. And one of them had their first big due date, might be the word. Not really, because today is technically the due date. So, but the first fire drill, I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but basically it is like it sounds, you know. You got these moments where everything is due for review and you're basically on standby while they need changes or they're flipping things out. And those days screw with the other contract plus my personal work that, you know, gets in the way. And it's expected. I sort of figure if there's a due date, I'll be like, hey, you know, probably 2 to 3 days before, you know, there'll be like a fire drill as they start putting everything together for like presentation or whatever. And they realize they have too much of one thing, not enough of the other, or they've put it up on a wall and they got changes. If you ever send work to a studio, understand that your artwork, whatever you produced, even if it was okayed, even if the complete direction came from someone else, the producer or art director, at some point your art is going to be put up on a wall over there. And when you stack it up against everything else, there's going to be this shifting, trying to get everything back in line to whatever vision they originally had, or whatever current vision they have now. Or to address, sometimes they go too far off on one direction, realize they got too many of one thing, nothing of another, so forth and so forth. So a lot of times revisions come from that more than individually looking at your art and saying, oh, it could be more like this or more like that. Mind you, I am talking about more like design stuff. If you're working in comics, you just turn in your pages and your editor says okay and you move on to the next page. But if you're in design, character design, t-shirt design, whatever, anything that's going to be one thing, one part of a group of something, then that's generally why revisions happen. And in like character design, they mostly have like milestones or weekly meetings, so those revisions come like a week later, or you know, during the milestones. T-shirts, it comes with days before they have a sales meeting. You know, usually a day to 3 days before a sales meeting, you're just gonna get these the owners and the salespeople and whatever else all sit in a room and start thinking they're gonna, sometimes rightfully so, they look at what's on the wall. The best case scenario, the optimal scenario, is that they have all the art on the wall and they're addressing needs and shifting and developing based on their presentation. The worst case scenario is someone in that room thinks that they got the master plan figured out for making the company $1 gazillion, and they're going to become, sort of like the art director, the Monday night quarterback and art director, and everything changes based on the whims of someone's personal taste. When you're working from your own studio, you have no clue why or how or what's going on. All you can do is, sort of schedule that, hey, sometime, 1 to 3 days before, the week before a major deadline is probably going to be a fire drill day. Well, that happened last week. And I'm expecting that to happen today too. So, what does that mean? Well, it means your other work isn't getting done today. Not much. So, not to say that, like, I've turned in everything. I'm waiting for, so I'm not going to sit on my ass and wait for shit. So, there's things I got to work on that are non-committal. Sketches, development, bits and bytes. Nothing that, like, I'm going to be into it for about an hour and I'm not going to look up from my desk or, things like that. You got to be willing to step away immediately and go do something else. That brings up another thing. The ability to stop what you're doing and immediately go do something else. And then probably while you're in the middle of that, having to stop and go do something else. Now, having worked blue-collar jobs in the past, worked at Wendy's, worked at security, worked at stores, worked in Kinko's, worked in the Army. I've developed various levels of tolerance for that. When I got to my first art department, I was completely unprepared for how my creative mind wanted no part of that. Like none, I had already gone through the Army thinking there's nothing a job can throw at me that I haven't already seen. Between working for my dad and the Army and everything else, I was like, yeah. But where I was wrong was that I had never really applied that to, like, my own art up until that point. Like, the closest might have been in college where, I'm working on one art project and then I got to work on another and I'm handling multiple art projects to an extent. But, like, once I got in an art department and, like, these fire drills started happening in the art department, and for 10 minutes I could be doing one thing and then immediately, for 10 minutes I could be working on kids' humor. And then the next 10 minutes later, I need to help put someone else's art on CADs that came from freelancers. And then 30 minutes after that, stop what I'm doing, wherever I'm at in the middle of that, finish the CAD, and then go help make patterns for sweaters. And then 15 minutes after that, stop and come help them physically move boxes from one room to the next, and then stop and run up and help pull samples for this meeting, and then 30 minutes after that, go help do icon-based imagery that will have to be part of a cut and sew package, and then help comp up and put all those things on the CADs. 15 minutes after that. I mean, for 8 hours, And so, it's one of those things where when people on the internet are like, Rob, why do you use Photoshop? It's like, kids, man, like, Clip Studio Paint don't help with those jobs. Side Power Tool, Paint Tool, or whatever doesn't help with those jobs. Like, when you got 15 fucking things to do in an hour, you gotta know how to do it efficiently, and you gotta know what they use. And they all use Photoshop and Illustrator, and fucking Illustrator's the worst, man. It's not that it's a bad program, it's that companies use it as a poor man's InDesign. So you have layers and layers of stuff that are all nested within one single layer. And everything's selectable simultaneously, and they're shoving bitmap rastered images into design documents that were made in a vector program because they're using Illustrator like you would InDesign. I think this comes from, because I'm old enough to remember, I think this comes from older guys in this industry or in these industries that used to use CorelDRAW. If you're familiar with that, because the only other program that would be the equivalent of InDesign now is Quark, and no one wanted to use Quark. Quark was a fucking nightmare, and had a singular purpose: document layout. So they used CorelDRAW, and CorelDRAW sort of got replaced by Illustrator, and Illustrator became this catch-all thing. And now there's InDesign, which works brilliantly for layouts, but they don't want to. They don't want to buy any more new software packages. So they jerry-rig this into Illustrator when they should be doing it all in Photoshop. If you're going to be embedding rastered images into presentation layouts, just fucking make a Photoshop document to do it. It just makes no sense to be using Illustrator for that. So when they're like, so when people are like, why don't you go use another program? I'm like, I can't fill more programs in my head, folks. I gotta be very aware of how to use the ones I already know. And if there isn't a current solution for how to do it in the program I'm using, I gotta develop one. So, and that mindset has kept me employed for how many years now? What, 20, I think 13 years in the art industry. It's not been go buy this program that'll solve our problems. Not that it would. It's just that they're unwilling to spend money on programs for artists. I think not every design studio out there, folks, is Pixar. When it comes to art, companies want to spend the least amount of money possible, and they will skimp everywhere. I've worked around. I have yet to find one place that invests heavily in an art department. If it happens, it generally comes from the fact that whoever's in charge is an artist. But other than that, it's like the only reason why I'm even able to handle 2 different contracts right now on top of my own work is because I'm doing this from home. So I can, sorry, I had to turn my email off. People like to email me too early, so I don't want to see that stuff. What was I saying? Oh, I can only do this here because I have built my own rig that has enough RAM and solid state drives and everything to allow me to do that. Something else you should understand. Most art departments basically buy those Macs, the iMacs or whatever. They're the giant screen with the computer built into it and a hard drive. And that's what you get to use. And then they hand you documents that are, PSDs that are a gig or 2 gigs, or sometimes, man, like in t-shirts when you're doing sublimations. You know what sublimations are? Sublimations are like, you know those t-shirts you go to Walmart and they're like all over and full color images and artwork. It's on polyester. Those are sublimated. So what they do is they print an image out on paper and they lay out polyester and they put the image basically over the polyester and it runs through a heat transfer and it transfers the images to the polyester. Doesn't work on cotton. But those files need to be print ready. So those are 9,000, 10,000 pixels by 10,000 pixels at 300 dpi. So you're talking like a layered file gets you 3 to 4 gigs each. And so on an iMac, you're fucked. Like things move so incredibly slow. When you got fire drills on an iMac, modern iMacs, the older ones, it was even worse. It was even worse. It was horrible. You know? Things just chug and don't work right. It's kind of like your phone. The only time I experience this now is when my phone has an update and then all of a sudden the CPU isn't as fast until you update your phone. You ever notice how you ever get CPU limitations the minute there's just coincidentally a fucking update? Yeah, because they're throttling your phone to get you to update it. I know they are. I don't give a shit what anyone says. I got my phone running Eevee. Eevee's it's on Android, but Eevee basically makes my entire home screen, whatever, it's just black. It's minimal. It's just the icons and black, you know. And I like to run the gray scheme, so it's not even color icons. So I don't have any CPU going on. No background network, nothing. But I get incredible lag the second there's an update. So, whatever. But yeah. So, I don't have to fight my equipment here. So, I can do it. But it has taken me a week to kind of get back into that rhythm. And I imagine today and this week will be another one of those weeks. Within the month, it'll all be worked out pretty evenly. I feel pretty confident now, but I also say that knowing one of these contracts is going to come back with, oh, and you forgot to do this, and, you know, just because human error, you know, is part of the deal, folks. So today I'm on the impending fire drill. So what I'm going to do here is after this, I'm going to go take my walk, which I don't care about fire drills. I go take my walk, and then I'll come back and be waiting. While I'm waiting, I'm going to work on the other contract. And then I'll just have to clock my time because I got 4 hours a day for each. There you go. That'll take me till 4 p.m. 4 p.m. I stop working and go do writing. Now I write. It's weird. I got my writing schedule for Game Cave later in the day, which I thought the front of the day would be the better part, but turns out that I get more writing done later. So I like 2 hours a day, but I break it up. I do an hour, and then I go make dinner and clean the kitchen and watch TV with my wife, and then I come back and do editing the second hour. And that seems to be working pretty good. Again, this is why you gotta test yourself, folks. You gotta try different things. And it's 19 minutes. So I wanna, speaking of trying different things, I'm working on this cover for Mount Olympus Comics. And a couple things. So I did the roughie, which is on the Instagram. And took me about 3 to 4 hours to do the whole page. So I figured, let's say if I had multiple panels, 5 hours, full color. It's a roughie, but as far as I'm concerned, for webcomics, that's going to be what I'm going to be doing. Because if I can get a whole page done, full color, in 3 to 5 hours, then I'm set. say 5 hours. It means I can do 2 a week and have time to do other shit. Probably do 4 a week, really. But I've been experimenting with looser lines, and so now I'm taking that roughing, I'm doing cleaner lines, but I'm using a less clean pencil brush. It's I'm not trying to perfect lines. I'm not trying to do thick and thin. I want a little bit of like halftone on those lines, so it's got a little bit of a painterly edge to it, softer, a little bit of, could see through the lines in some areas. And then I'll color that, so a little less perfect. Why? Faster. And 2, I don't think anyone notices, man. I notice, and I know, I appreciate artists that have super technical, awesome art, but I make my art happen in the colors, so I gotta like get through lines. So I'm in a learning phase again. Like, I got a lot of ideas in life, folks, and this year I want to start getting them all out. And the only way it's going to happen is if I just eliminate, half or 3/4 of my effort with lines. So I like putting in the effort, like when I do the Dragon Ball Z stuff or the power prints. But, it's okay to do rougher lines when you call yourself SketchCraft. Oh shit, dog. Just find out what works for you, as long as you're happy. I'm very happy with where this is going. It's just taking a while to like use the brush, and when I'm creating the art, I have to, and I'm seeing the result. I have to train my brain to think that's okay. It's okay for it to look like that, Rob. Like, I'm not used to seeing that. I'm used to seeing these perfectly clean lines, and so I keep thinking, oh, I'm doing it wrong. And it's like, no, I'm not doing it wrong. I just have to step back, and so there's just like apply myself, step back, apply myself. This cover would have been drawn by now, but when I came to the secondary lines, the cleaner lines, I've been redrawing elements of it 3 or 4 times because my head couldn't get around it. Seems to be getting around it now. So, it's just a learning phase. I find new artists whenever they have ideas that they submit and they get approval, and they go and make them, and they turn in something completely different than what they handed in as a proposal, as a thumbnail or whatever. They say, well, that's the best that thing could be. And I'm like, was it, or was when you were working on it, it didn't feel right, so you changed it? So like, that's a hard concept to teach. I can't do it in a minute. So I'll have to revisit that idea, but that's it's a concept I should definitely flesh out in a design document. So it is January 15th, 2018, and it is time. It's time to go do some work, folks. Let's go do it.